Well, if that intro doesn't get you hyped, then I don't know what will. Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy. We are here with our weekly review series on WandaVision, which is the first MCU streaming service show. I think we had to find a definition for what exactly it was last week, but we've got that out of the way. This is, of course, episode 3, and it doesn't have a title, doesn't have a name. It's episode 3 of WandaVision, and we are here to discuss, speculate, review, and everything in between. This is fast becoming one of the most, I won't say talked about shows, but certainly in terms of theories and how it's tying in and the mystery around it, this is definitely one of the most enigmatic shows I think I've seen in a long time, and we're going to be going through it all today. So as always, this is going to be a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't yet seen the latest episode of WandaVision, go away and watch it first and then come back to our review, because we're going to dive deep into this thing. But yeah, I mean, that intro, right, I've got to go back to that intro. My God, I didn't know you'd have it ready for today. So that was a surprise for me. I know that you were talking about doing a Marvel intro, but that was quite special. So thanks for getting that together.
No worries. If you guys like that intro, then no joke, that was ready about 15 minutes ago. Chris has no idea. I delayed. I literally said, "Hold on, I can't get my microphone." Literally 10 seconds before we went live, so I could upload it. But if you like that, then straight away hit that like button, because you know we like Marvel. Do comment along with us tonight, as Chris said. There's a lot of spoilers, a lot of speculation. We want to know your theories. We don't just sit here on what we think is going to happen. We want to know what you think is going to happen. Stuff we've read online. This is an incredible series so far, because I couldn't remember the last time I had a series where I've had that intrigue. Maybe it's because it's weekly and I don't normally do weekly shows that could add to that illusion. Many illusions in WandaVision. But as usual, guys, the best way to find out our streams, when we're going to be live, what we're going to be doing is by getting us on our socials. So Facebook, Cinema Savvy, Twitter @cinema_savvy. And of course, do hit that subscribe button if you do enjoy this. As you said, there's a Marvel intro now. It's safe to assume every Friday for the next couple of months are going to be based around Marvel. Disney Plus isn't showing signs of slowing down. Many films are, but opportunities arise from films being moved. We had a crazy year last year. Even Tenet delays meant we could do a Nolan month when we originally hadn't planned that fully. And there could be a couple of surprises up your sleeve for marathons and whatnot that could come out this year, because there is going to be a new Bond film, and it's now October the 8th, but we're not here to talk about James Bond, not yet. Come back at the end of April for that. There's a little teaser. But yes, WandaVision, it's safe to say, I think, sort of going into it last week, I don't think we had mixed feelings. I think we were in that sort of confused territory, is a really nice way to put it. I think that we kind of witnessed something and we weren't quite really sure what we'd watched. We'd understood what we'd watched. It was like, we're not sure what's going to go on. And I think what's been fascinating, and me and you both spoke about this, is the reaction online of people. I'm not talking reactions to videos, the people discussing it, everyone having different theories. And most speculation and theories are people like up themselves with their own theories. They're on their high horse, that they know the comics. And then WandaVision's come along. And as someone that's a comic reader, WandaVision's just like shat on everyone that thinks they read comics. Because, there's many storylines it could be adapting. I believe it's doing one inverted, not to get too Nolan-esque. But it's been fascinating. And I think there's a bit of unity there, where I think it's kind of what we said. I know a couple of people that have struggled that are more casual fans, probably casual Marvel fans or casual film fans, not even specifically Marvel, but this isn't an easy show to sell to the general audience. And I think as a heading for episode 3, I think episode 3 will go straight back into that original debate. I'm sorry. Episode 3 should have been out last week. Episode 3, I think, leaves you in the most intriguing state of mind for now I need to wait a week. Whereas episode 2 didn't have that as much. And I think 3 episodes on day 1 would have worked. And that's what critics got. They got episodes 1 to 3, nothing from 4 onwards.
Yeah, and I mean, this is 9 episodes, isn't it? I think in total, this series is going to be. So if you release the first 3, you've essentially, that's your first act of your TV show right there, of your main plot, first act, with setting up the intrigue for what's to come in act 2 and 3. So yeah, I kind of felt that a little bit too, especially with the ending and sort of like the stinger that this episode finishes on. It definitely leaves you reeling with more questions. Not to say that the end of episode 2 didn't, because it absolutely did, but I think this one kind of cemented it in that regard. We have a discussion out there already for episodes 1 and 2 where we talk about those episodes in absolute depth, but just a sort of like a recap for me and my thoughts were on it. I didn't come out sort of like singing its praises like this is the greatest TV show I've ever seen. I think the one thing that did hook me, and I think probably hooked a lot of people, was the intrigue about it and that need to know how this ties in and where this is, not just how it ties into what's come before, but also the ramifications of everything that it's setting up, because we know that this is going to directly tie into, I think they've specifically said Doctor Strange 2, and I mean, who knows what else this thing could set up. And it was only reading the hundreds of articles probably out there where people were zooming in on things in the background, all the little Easter eggs and references to not just the MCU, but really deep cut stuff to, you know, stuff in the comic book, stuff that I wasn't even aware of that even existed before that point. And just that attention to detail that the showrunners have, or the writers, or whoever it happens to be, that they would put that in the episode. So, but I could see two sides to it, because I know that, you know, if you're a diehard Marvel fan, I think that's ideally the audience that this show is made for. It's people that have probably, who read the comic books or have at least watched every single Marvel film, because this is a direct follow-up. I don't think this would be a very accessible show to newcomers, especially after today's episode as well. Names are dropped, events are mentioned in this episode, and well, I mean, if you haven't watched Avengers Age of Ultron whenever that came out, whatever year that was, and remember that one specific character that only got that one film, you're going to be pretty lost with the end of this. So I absolutely think this is just as much a continuation as any of the MCU films is at this point. I think that, I mean, this definitely has cemented itself that this needs to definitely be watched alongside the films. I can't imagine how they're going to explain it in the films if you haven't watched this TV show. But also, if you are a fan of the Marvel films, and 23 films or however many it is, you come to expect a certain thing. You expect explosions, giant punch-em-ups, fights, lots of CGI, and lots of superheroes fighting each other. And so far with this, that's not what you're getting. Yes, it is smaller screen, smaller scale, but I think that might potentially turn some audiences off that have come to expect that from something related to Marvel. And I don't know how accessible a 60s into 70s sitcom style show would be specifically for that audience, and not even just that audience, but today's audiences. Now, I grew up with some shows of like reruns and stuff from the 70s and the 80s of TV shows like that. So I'm aware of the style. I've seen similar things and I enjoy similar things of that style. But I don't know how many other people have had that luxury or have that connection to those kind of shows, or are aware of the kind of really hammy acting in it, or the script delivery, or the shot choices and things like that. So I can see it being a very divisive show. And I think it's going to be not until we get to the end of episode 9 and finish this whole season and view it as one complete story where our whole perceptions are going to change on it. And if this style of doing it in a sitcom style really has any relevance to the greater whole, because that's my biggest question, is that I like that this is sort of we're assuming a world that Wanda's either put herself into or someone's put her into for various reasons we don't know. But why a sitcom style TV show? Have they just gone with that style because it's a TV show? And because it's sort of like a weekly episodic thing, or is there a specific reason for that style choice? And I think even with this episode today, you know, moving into 70s sitcoms and moving into color, which we saw that transition last week, I need to know the reason why they've decided to style the show like that. I think that's my biggest question.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that I think we need and will get answers to. It's kind of, I think it's going to be more a when, not if, because I definitely think today, not because it's color and it's the 70s, but I thought the era worked better today. Now, maybe that's because the plot moved forward, but there was something about that sort of 70s era where it made it easier to view compared to the 50s, 60s. I don't want to say it is just because it's not black and white, but I think last week, because we got the sort of the hint that she's pregnant, so we're going to get something interesting happen. And then I guess today was some weird like accelerated pregnancy thing, which I thought was a kind of fascinating idea, because you can't carry out over 9 months. It's too random to be over 9 months. But I think the pregnancy is going to be not just pushing forwards the plot of this show, but in a grand scheme of things, maybe a phase 4, because there are names that were dropped, not just from phase 2, back from Age of Ultron. We obviously got the twins that were born. I was really trying to think of the Star Wars meme when the robot tells them that she's having twins, because she didn't know either. But it wouldn't really have worked for Marvel. But it's interesting because there's just so many questions. And even after today, we've had an answer or two to something. But then it's like a Hydra. You get one answer and then you get 2 more questions to come with it. And I think it's quite fascinating. And I sort of chastised it maybe for not dropping all at once. But I think the pacing of today, I mean, it was still 25, 26 minutes. But I'm more intrigued to see what's going to happen now. I like the shorter episodes. I don't know if this series could justify stretching to the 40 minutes that Mando used to do or whatnot. But my intrigue is not just with the sitcoms now, but when they're going to have scenes not set in Wanda's world. That would have been a great name for it, Wanda's World. I think, how are they going to do a sitcom and then have reality and go back to the sitcom? I think that's a very tricky thing to do. So I've got a lot of optimism for episode 4. I know it's the wrong time to sort of talk about episode 4, but I don't know if they're still going to do a sitcom and then we'll get added time. Do you see that? I wouldn't want a 25-minute sitcom plus 10 minutes of real life. I think that'd be so this sort of just wouldn't work. I don't know how that could be edited in or without completely losing people. We know that next week will be the 80s, but I definitely think that 70s setting helped push it on. And it's one kind of thing I want to say about the era itself. I sent this to you as a note just so I didn't forget to discuss it tonight. I had a massive criticism with a couple of period films. There's loads of period films where you get modern technology, your 4K cameras, all your modern stuff, and they're making a period film and it looks shiny as 2020. I think the really obvious one was Trial of Chicago 7. I think we all kind of said that it looked so sleek, so modern. It didn't look like a period piece. It looked new. Whereas the approach of WandaVision today, set in the 70s, it looked grainy. It looks like something shot in the 70s that's had its like 1080p remaster that's available on Netflix now. And I was kind of taken away by that because we know it was a strange juxtaposition that we've got these modern day actors that we all know from modern day stuff, and they look like they've come in from the 70s. And that's a massive compliment, I guess, to the filming techniques, because I don't know how they did it. Did they use older cameras? Did they use newer cameras and play with the lenses or do different sort of things with it? Because I think that went a long way in sort of pushing this new era type thing. And when it's black and white, it's easier to do that because it's black and white. You're naturally going to have your eyes taken away from it. But if it had suddenly been sleek, clean, colorized and modern, but the 1970s, that would have stood out horribly. And I think they absolutely nailed getting that 70s aesthetic right today.
I think visually, yeah, I think this one definitely worked a lot more in terms of that aesthetic of the source material that it was based on than the previous 2 weeks. Last week, it looked like it was just filmed in 1080p and you just bumped all the desaturation down to black and white and just there you go. They could have gone the extra mile and filmed it on original authentic cameras from that time. It probably would have been very expensive though, and maybe they couldn't have done everything they needed to. But even the sound quality, they didn't really mess around with things like that. It felt very modern, and this one felt a lot better to a point. But the moment where a CGI stork walks into the shot, I was like, you've kind of taken me out of this now, because I mean they wouldn't have had that in the 70s. And I get that, you know, it's Wanda sort of like bringing things in from her own imagination and things like that. And it was played for laughs. It was played for a goof. And in context of a joke like that on a 70s TV show, you wouldn't have had something like that. And you certainly wouldn't have had the limitations of like, you know, a lifelike CGI stork. So that bit kind of took me out of it. I liked the initial first bit. And once again, like the chemistry between Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen at the beginning, where in the kitchen, I thought that was brilliant. I loved that. The writing still isn't quite there for me in terms of capturing that, just like that crystal like humor and that pace and that the essence from those original shows. I mean, the joke in this, they kind of have one joke that they just keep repeating, which is that breathing thing. It felt like they did that joke about like 5 or 6 times. I was like 1 or 2 times maybe, but after a point, that sort of got a little bit too much for me. I'll kind of agree with Carl here. Carl's just dropped us a message saying it did feel 80% filler, but man, that other 20% got my brain thinking. And yeah, I mean, to me, this has followed exactly the same formula as the previous 2 episodes where, you know, you have this sitcom, whether it's 60s or 70s, whatever it happens to be, you get this completely disconnected scenario with something that's going on. You punctuate it with some like weird little glitches and things that aren't quite right, or something that's a bit sort of what's the word I'm looking for? We didn't say scary. We didn't say it was like a horror, but something quite unsettling, I guess is the right word for it. Something like glitches or something rewinds. And it's filler. And then it's always at the very end, which sort of takes you on to the next episode or sets you up for what's going on. And I kind of felt that with this episode. I like all the actors involved, and I think their chemistry shines through. But to me, the writing just isn't there. but I am gravitating more towards that 20% that Carl's referring to, where it is tying more into the greater MCU of what's come before, and we're getting glimpses as to where it's potentially heading in future episodes as well.
Definitely. I think the progression point from episode 1 being, here's a weird 10 seconds of a man choking on the floor for sort of 10, 15 seconds. That was the big weird tease. Episode 2, I guess, with the radio, obviously the man coming out of the well in the helicopter, and there's a bit of intrigue there, but this is the one, you've got the neighbor drilling through the wall, and he's really weird, and then we get Catherine Hahn in again. Isn't the ultimate supporting character in this. We didn't know if she was going to be like the best friend or what her plans are, but with the scene with the Vision, I think was even more intriguing than the final scene.
That was my favorite bit with Vision, with the rewind.
Yeah, the Vision rewind was great, and they didn't even do the rewind figure. They just click of a finger, we're back there. You know, we've done it once before. We can show they can go back and change things they don't, like they said. I loved that, and I loved it when he went outside as well, was talking to the neighbors. That was I'm trying to think. There's this film that's been in my head for ages. There's so many dozens of films like this, though. It's when all the characters start to realize that it's been a trap all along.
Is it like the end of Seven or something, where you've got Morgan Freeman? He's like trying to run back to the main action that's happening. Like,
I can't. There's one perfect film which does it. Oh no, it's of course it's The Dark Knight. It's the Joker, and that's probably one of the, maybe it's not the example I'm thinking of, but it's the obvious go-to, and it's when the neighbors like Vision like is Geraldine in there. She's got no home, and I was like, what's this? And then things are whirring, and that's when my brain starts goes like, oh, so she's not the cuddly next neighbor we thought she'd be. I know a lot of people have their theories online, but I wasn't expecting her to break internal characters. Maybe going to be a phrase I use for it. And then you have the other neighbor and Vision's sort of wondering, and it's like Geraldine has no home. Like something's going to happen.
I was expecting bodies. I was expecting to get back in that room and someone or something, or they wouldn't kill babies. I mean, it's Disney, for God's sake. Like Disney will kill parents, but they won't kill babies. But I was expecting something gruesome with how it was edited and how it was set up, and we didn't get that, but we do get like a very sort of intriguing name drop, which I guess should we get into that now? Sort of like the main name drop at the end.
Yeah, of course. Pietro Maximoff, who you all say. Aaron Taylor Johnson from Age of Ultron. I love this because I don't know if it was live on air, but me and you definitely spoke about him in the last week. I remember saying like it's weird that she had a brother and they just don't ever talk about him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when she says Pietro, because she has twins. And here's a comic thing to get into. The two names of the twins, I'm not going to take credit for this. This is obviously comic book fans, proper ones. The Young Avengers has been this pipe dream, very low-key of rumor for many months. Could Marvel do a Young Avengers film? And it's kind of been like laughing it off. And then the two twin names in this are the names of her two children from the House of M comic series, and the two children which are also in the Young Avengers. Now, I can't name you all the Young Avengers. There's probably dozens of them. But Kate Bishop, who is Hawkeye's number 2, who everyone's probably heard of, is going to be in the Hawkeye series. Miss Marvel is getting her own series. Now, I don't know if she's in the Young Avengers. There's like an Iron Kid or something like that.
Well, I guess there's that, but there's also Iron Man's daughter, specifically in Endgame. There's Ant-Man has a daughter. Yeah,
Cassidy.
Oh God, it's going to happen, isn't it? It's going to happen.
You've got other Marvel shows. You've got that weird one that someone builds a better Iron Man suit than Iron Man. That's like a kid. And obviously, we've literally got babies in a pram. And this is today's internet discussion. So it might be fully blown up. These babies might not actually exist. They probably don't. But it's, again, to me, it's that Kevin Feige. It's what we said last week. I think he chucks the Easter eggs in there to get people talking because they might not follow through. I'm not saying we're getting not a Mandalorian, a Mandarin / Trevor Slattery moment, but everyone's rampant online. And what does this speculation do? It's word of mouth. It's getting everyone talking about the product, and it's doing it in a fascinating way of where could it go? What does it mean? And we're getting all these things, and it might not mean any of it, but I just absolutely love it. And the whole Pietro thing, the moment I didn't expect, because I said that even you were shocked. I had a hands-on head moment. Doesn't happen often. It wasn't a long one like Mandalorian, but it's just because Ultron killed him, and I was like, "What?" There's that meme of that guy that like sort of turns around and he like looks into the camera. And I was like, Ultron reference, and that's when something happens. It suddenly reminded me of the boys. Like I'm expecting like Homelander just to like rip this person into, because everything changed on the episode. Like get the Death Star klaxon going. Saying Ultron killed him to her completely. I thought this is all a game. They're all along with it. Is she a young agent that's done a terrible job? Is everybody else now agents that's there working with her? I think that could be a legitimate theory. But those final few minutes just had so much going for it, and I just want to see more. Like I'm already really excited for next week.
See, I didn't have like a massive shock moment. I don't know if it's down to the fact I didn't like Age of Ultron. I think I've probably only seen that film maybe twice, if that. And so to me, it was just it's nice that it got an acknowledgement, that it happened, because I can't remember back to Civil War, but I'm guessing that that's the only film post that film that she's even talked about her brother. I can't really remember it. I seem to have her having some kind of like moment in Civil War where she's like maybe thinking back to the past, and that's the only thing that I can think of. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she doesn't talk about it after it happens in Age of Ultron, but it's nice to just sort of like remember like, oh yeah, that character was a thing. But I didn't particularly like Aaron Taylor-Johnson in that film, and he's one and done, and there's even when his character dies in that film, it's not particularly like emotional or heart-rendering, because we never had much time to get to know him as a character. He didn't go on for more films than that. So it's nice to see her reaction to that, I suppose, just in context of the greater MCU, that, yeah, that still did have an impact seeing, her brother die. But it wasn't like a massive, like, oh my God, they mentioned Ultron. I was like, just, oh, okay, that's cool. And, move on. But specifically to what you said about the two baby names tying into sort of like comic lore and everything like that, I didn't even think about that. I kind of don't want them to do that, but I suppose that's a surefire way for Marvel to just, another 10, 20, 30 years, who knows how long they can keep this thing going, and how many more posters we can add to the intro for this video. Who knows in a few years' time. But and maybe they can team up with New Mutants. There you go. If you're going for a younger cast, bring the mutants in as well. Why not? So who knows what their plans are. I think there's actually probably a lot of weight to that. And they wouldn't have based it on that comic line story if they didn't. I know that with Ragnarok, for example, you have the Planet Hulk stuff a little bit, in that there's an arena and the Hulk's in the gladiator armor, but it's not really like a direct adaptation of that comic book. So it could merely just be, oh look, we're homaging this comic, or it could be a straight adaptation and they take that forward. So the possibilities are quite literally endless. But what I'm thinking is, if we know that this isn't a real world necessarily, but if children are born into this world and it is still sort of part of Wanda's psyche, we know that Vision was some kind of like artificial intelligence, right? I know they explain it in Age of Ultron, but it's very scientific, it's very technical, and I know they use algorithms from Ultron and they make like the perfect entity, the perfect machine or whatever that Vision is, and he becomes self-aware and becomes more than the sum of his parts, essentially. He's like constantly learning. What if the children born into this world are, although it's in like a weird sort of trippy world, if they are somewhat real? I mean, they are sort of like the offspring of Vision as well. So could they still exist and be some like weird interdimensional beings? I have no idea. I don't know how crazy they can get with these things. Maybe the children will disappear by the end of this thing and they were never real to begin with. And Carl says it best, and I think we mentioned it. I think this is probably sort of like the best comparison piece that the show has to anything. It has a Truman Show feel to it. I'd say probably a mix of like Truman Show and Twin Peaks are probably the two things that I can compare it the most to. But yeah, it's definitely got me scratching my head about where this is all going to head to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I know that next week will be the 80s, which is, I know, going to be your favorite period for them to do what they want to do. And I'm just curious to see what the plan is. Do they had an accelerated pregnancy? Does that mean the kids are going to age up as well? I don't really know what's going to happen. But aside from that, I'm just struggling to think of some of the other key plot points from the episodes, in all honesty. Because not massively amount happens. It was more the ending scenes, and I think that's what people are left on. That now we want to see where episode 4 goes, get to episode 4, and then what's going to happen with that. Is that going to change the perspective of the series? I don't think episode 4 will massively, but I think one thing we know for sure now is that Wanda is very aware of swords. Last week it could have just been the villain, the guy coming out of the sewage tunnel. They've actually recognized the necklace logo as well. That was a big thing, and I loved that really awkward. Sort of the is she in danger of running home scene? She's like, where is she? It's like, oh, she's gone, and I was like, oh, like, has she like evaporated her, or is she doing something insane? And she's just thrown her out of her sitcom, literally. And that was a great way, I think, to end on, to get the intrigue up, was all the helicopters. You get a little shot of the corner of the village. You get like reminds me of, there's so many things that are done it. When you get this sort of like, it's like the Gungan Dome, but you get like it's like a red theme.
It reminded me the most of, I don't think you've seen this film, but it's Cabin in the Woods. I don't want to give too much about it away, but it's like this constructed place, and there's like a force field they've got around it, which keeps them trapped in, and they try at all costs to keep them located in this one area, and they can't break out. And it's like that weird sort of like hexagon mesh dome, like electrical dome look to it. It is used in a lot of things. It's not specific to that, but that's the one that it reminded me of the most with this thing. I guess we should talk about Geraldine's character. I think maybe we talked about her a little bit in the episode 1 and 2 discussion. Now, you probably remember her more than me. Captain Marvel was a film that I watched once at the cinema, and I believe that I fell asleep for 10 minutes of it as well. I wasn't the big fan of Captain Marvel, but I know that the woman Geraldine is a character from that film. She was a little girl at the time of Captain Marvel, being set in the 90s. Obviously, she's aged up now with it. So has she been sent in to try and extract Wanda, or to dismantle it from the inside, this vision, or to make them aware of something that's coming, someone who's behind it all? We don't really know the specifics of why she's gone in, but we know that it does tie into the organization of S.W.O.R.D. and obviously her origins dating back to Captain Marvel. So there's definitely something there as well. Who are the people in the helicopters? Are they the good guys? Are they the bad guys? Was she sneaking in undercover to get away from the people in the helicopters? So many questions, and we've got another 6 episodes, and hopefully they can tie it all up, I think, by the end of it. Carl says, about the doctor made a comment, not going on holidays, you can't escape. Yeah, that was again like another tell there as well.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm excited by. The theory from the first episode is still that the one from Captain Marvel, her mom was a pilot. She could have been a helicopter pilot that either flew in or crashed in. That's why there's the tiny helicopter in episode 2. That's why she's new to the town in the second film. And the no home comment was quite interesting today. Mm-hmm. So I've got a feeling that she's either, as a generic theory to cross in with those other kind of bits, I think she's got a whole town hostage. I think she's in too deep in her own mind. There are legit people held hostage there. And I think within that, you've sort of been able to plant spies into the neighborhood, i.e. the next door neighbor. Geraldine being one that's probably already failed. She's probably tried to get too much info too quickly. So I'm very curious to see what happens, because it has left that intrigue, especially when you bring up the townspeople. I think that was the thing. Don't get me wrong, I've really enjoyed it, because we've not really spoken about Vision much. There's nothing to really say, but Paul Bettany is phenomenal again. And I think it's just him as an actor. He's great with the lines he gets, whether he has an input on them. His delivery is almost impeccable every episode, but the crux of the story is that we all know he's dead. And I know that's a sort of horrible thing to say about a character and performance in it, because we know he's great in it, but I know that the story doesn't lie within his character. Now, maybe there'll be more to it. Maybe we'll find out things, but we know what's happened to Vision. His indestructible head that got ripped off in Infinity War. So I want to see more from the townspeople, because I think the Doctor was new. We hadn't seen him before. Obviously, last week we had the next door neighbor again, the one from Buffy, which is probably the only sort of 70s sort of joke that landed, was the do I look like big in this shirt? And the lights go out, and he says, "Oh, thank God for that." Very parenty dad sitcom sort of family man you'd get comment from those kind of eras. And I just think there's so much going on, and we're all going to find out where it's heading, because I'm the same as you. I just want to know why and how it's a decade switch. If they'd have just set it in one era for the 9 episodes, that could have been kind of understandable, but they've gone in so deep to make this a different decade each time. I'm just curious to see what on earth it's going to be.
And that's the thing, like this formula that they've got at the moment, where it's, going back to what Cole said earlier, like the 80% filler and then the 20% at the end. I don't want that to be every episode, but I am also conscious that they are going to move to 80s TV and 90s and 2000s and 20. So I think the formula's here to stay for the rest of the show, but I would like to get more and more as the episodes go on, so it's not just like a wacky disconnected plot line that doesn't mean anything, and then we get like the last 5 minutes of the episode that actually does mean something and furthers the story. But I don't know, I guess we could talk about some other little cutaways and theories and background things now. I actually didn't notice that many in this one. I think the main one, which is quite an obvious one, is the little ad breaks that we get, which is like a running thing now with the show, which was Hydra Soap, I think it was. Unleash Your Inner Goddess. I don't know if that links to anything, but I think you noticed a few more deep cut things maybe in this one.
Yeah, so I'm not going to take credit for this. In the wall in the house, there is a portrait of a castle on a mountain. Said castle on said mountain is from Age of Ultron / end credit scene of whichever was the last Avengers film pre Age of Ultron. And it's basically the lab where she was born at. Obviously, that was a Hydra-run laboratory. Baron von Strucker, I think, was the villain who got a reference last week. And I think there's something going on in the background. There's more and more references to that film. So are we going to get the Aaron Taylor-Johnson return, or are we going to get more of her when she's younger? And what everyone's talking about now is, I'm loving the little adverts. It's so strange, so different. However, the advert is essentially making reference to Wanda's situation. So the bath basically says it's not about being in a dream, but it's going on about to escape from reality, have the Hydra bath soap. And it's kind of like, well, we know she's not in her own reality. So this one was a bit more on the nose, but I'm kind of really enjoying them because I know you can't get ad breaks in these. But the fact that we're getting a 30-second teaser, and apparently I've not noticed this is again online, the actor and actress have been the same in every advert.
Right. No, I didn't even clock that.
So they're being credited as commercial man, commercial woman. And people think, could it be her parents? I think it's a bit too speculation-y. I don't think we need anything like that. But I'm curious to see how these... I mean, the 80s one, you just know it's going to be like, what Wonder Woman 84 was advertised as, basically. You can imagine like bright colors, neon lights, loud music.
Exercise gear, probably.
There's already been photos. Yeah, there's been photos of exercise gear for next episode. So it's going to be interesting. It's just these nice little things, and I say it helps fill the time. It's only 25 minutes. I think if this show tried to drag out, it would completely fail. But the fact it is 20-minute sitcom orientated, telling a story, move on to the next episode, next era, I think has helped it. Quick comment from Carl. I have a feeling her brother will make an appearance in the series at some point.
I was hoping for that after today's,
Now we've had the name drop. Now I've had something, even if it's a reality or what life could have been or what she wants to do. I'm very intrigued to see what could happen if we do get Aaron Taylor-Johnson back, because what we knew about The Mandalorian as far as the Disney Plus show goes, they can keep these stuff hidden under wraps. There's not been many leaks. Only if they're filming on location is it really possible to get leaks. And Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldiers had a couple of photos online from being on sets, but all this is done in a studio. It's basically their own little nuke town, so they can probably contain that set easier than anything else. So I would love Aaron Taylor-Johnson to make a cameo. And I think there's going to be one or two other big ones which we don't have a clue about. Yeah,
no, I'd like to see him return to it and just get a bit more development between the two of them. It's weird. We're getting so much development for characters that are deceased. We said that about last time with Vision. Not to say that they had chemistry together and they had scenes together in the Avengers films, but it did seem very quick. But we're getting sort of like the bulk of it now, even after he's died twice on screen. Maybe we'll get the same for Quicksilver. If I'm just throwing out one other thing that I just remembered in the episode, I love the intro sequences and how they change with the times. This one was very Brady Bunch this time. You have like all the squares around I think even the font for it was very much Brady Bunch as well. So I like the attention to detail in that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the 80s one. For obvious reasons, because it's the greatest decade ever. So I think I've pretty much said everything I can on this episode. there's not really much to say, but as you said, they are kind of like bite-sized episodes. I did actually forget how long the episodes were, so I loaded it up today expecting like a 35-minute to 40-minute episode. For some reason, I completely forgot how long they were last time. I think it's because I watched 2 back-to-back last time. Maybe my memory got a little bit hazy, and I was like, oh, 20-something minutes, and it's got like 10-minute long credits. This is going to be a breeze. So yeah, it is very much easy to get through, I think, and power through it. So I've said everything I can on this episode. I don't know if you have anything else to add. If not, we'll close out.
No, that's pretty much everything I can say. So, guys, we'll say this. If you have enjoyed today, if you're liking WandaVision, do come back next Friday. So we're going to be live every Friday at 8 p.m. for the WandaVision spoiler reviews. If you've got any questions, do comment them on the video. We will reply to those messages after the video if they're not on the live stream. So do that. We do respond. If you have enjoyed today, do like, comment, share, and subscribe. And if you want to know some of the other stuff we've got coming to the channel, tomorrow we're going to be doing a review on the new upcoming Netflix release, which is Malcolm and Marie, starring Zendaya and John David Washington, aka the protagonist from Tenet. We're looking forward to that. That's one of the lockdown films that people have been discussing, so do check that out. That's going to be up tomorrow. There'll be more information on our socials, which you can always find at Facebook, Facebook Cinema Savvy, Twitter at Cinema_Savvy, and of course, what we have said as well, retro reviews are every Tuesday. We are going to be doing Tango and Cash this Tuesday, the 23rd, 26th, isn't it? Tango and Cash is Tuesday the 26th. So if you've enjoyed some of our 80s ones, we've done Commando, we've done Cobra, for all the Karate Kids, or the Rocky films. Retro reviews are really good fun, so do check them out for some of the older films we're going to be doing. And of course, we have a link to our TeePublic down in the description below. But aside from that, I think that's everything I've got to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So once again, big thank you to Carl for jumping on, and anyone else that tuned in during this thing. And we'll see you for the next video. Take care, guys.